I have a very important question for you, Mr. Michael Clark.
Thank you for using my last name.
As the airplane flies over our heads.
Meow.
Are you prepared for my question? Are you ready?
As ready as I'll ever be.
Okay, all right. Did you think about me as you were slowly slipping into bed last night? You know you
want
did.
The honest answer?
I do. Yes, you absolutely better have.
I
I'm gonna
mean,
be very upset if you didn't.
You know, I've always been a disappointment, so.
The gift I gave you in bed, and you don't even that. I'm just disgusted.
To be fair, I said we were gonna set it up, and then we didn't.
Oh, okay. We're gonna get into this a little further, but it is important for me to address not the elephant in the room, because that would be me, but we're going to address the interloper, the newest addition to the rotating cast of characters here at the Disinformed podcast. We have got the glorious superfan himself. I did not just assume your pronouns, but we're just going to throw this in there. This is Dr. Michael. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, thank you kindly. Megustalations, everyone. Oh, wrong podcast.
You.
Wrong podcast.
Yeah, you're damn sure right.
Oh, I thought it was the left. I thought it was the last podcast.
I'm still wearing my shirt right now, so I am not going to be running a Henry this evening. I am not wearing pants, though, as per usual, so we're getting there.
Good.
But, so before we get into the extenuating circumstances, I do have to, stand on ceremony for a moment and say, by the eternal, behold. It is, in fact, the Disinformed podcast, so I am Shane.
I am Michael the Lesser.
And I am Michael the Greater.
We'll go with that. It's important because now we do have to do a bit of disambiguation for the first time here, in that there is a tale of two Michaels, a tale of two titties, if you will. And so here's the decision I've made. I have to, just take a moment to acknowledge the fact that I am the only human being now on this show that doesn't have two first names. Because between, I'm not going to out
fair.
Everybody's last names here, but yes. So if I refer to either of you by your last names, it's still going to sound like I'm referring to you by your first name. And that's just going to be even more confusing. So as a fan of Young Guns and Kiefer Sutherland in particular, I think I can just call you Doc and get away with calling you Doc from this point forward.
Well, I mean, who would we know which one of the two of us are? Oh, that's right.
Oh,
Michael.
yeah. I'll never get that doctorate, so
it's painfully obvious.
It is known. It is
yes.
known.
So that was my initial thought, is, I can get away with that. And so then we just have, rote biblical Michael here that has been here since Genesis. And then, you are now Michael II. So that will just make you Doc, in my estimation.
Yeah, it works for me.
You're welcome to object. I mean, don't be too supremely Canadian about this. It's fine.
No, truth be told, I was just going to suggest originally like Mr. Michael, Dr. Michael, but yeah, that Doc works perfectly fine for me.
Yes. I mean, as far as when I call you out, that's what we'll go with.
I mean, essentially, as my mother used to say when I was a kid, you can call me anything you want. Don't call me late for dinner.
Okay. I thought it was going to be as my mother used to say as I was a kid. God damn it! Stop touching that. Shut the fuck up and get back in the house. Like, it's any number of things.
See, I never heard your mother say that because she never told me to stop touching it.
Indeed. Well, and unfortunately, also, I never heard my mother say that either, which is why I have brain damage. So we've all survived. No, my mother would actually probably go for a good touching. I'm not going to lie. So
no, she does, definitely. I mean, I've said too much.
If you could afford the airfare back and forth from here to the grand land of opossums that you're living in presently.
Sir, I will just say that your mother and I were playing doctor long before you called me Doc.
Okay, well. And I can guarantee that I know her and you well enough to know that you both swallow. So it's going to be a good time. I look forward to not having any siblings going forward.
Who's your daddy?
Oh, no.
Goddamn sure not you. I can tell you that much. I have absolutely no respect for anybody that would go and do that. In any event, what we usually do here, other than mother molestation on this show, is we tend to dive into random esoterica. In the course of explaining it to one another and to you, which now our listener base just completely evaporated. We've gotten Courtney and Michael on here, so we're just lost. In any event, we will explain the topic, and we'll lie about it. That's the delight of the show most of the time. But, of course, we won't allow you to leave disinformed. No. We have a denouement at the end of the episode. We explained what we lied about and why, and it's occasionally funny. I say occasionally because I've listened to last week's episode, and, oof.
I
That
can't
was a
even
joke,
say
Michael.
It was more educational than entertainment because it wasn't very educational.
Oh, it was educational. I realize now what happens when you remove sugar from a cookie.
Honestly, I'm trying to figure out how you got her to marry you. I mean,
I ask myself that every day.
Well, she'll be, sent back to Russia if she didn't capitulate. So it's really unfortunate for all involved parties. And we've seen what's happening over there these days.
You've mentioned Russia, and that's a perfect segue.
You act like I don't do this for a fucking living, Michael. I am somewhat fairly well versed at hosting this show.
It's like you know what to do.
It's strange, but I am here for this. I'm also excited to actually get to talk about this topic, as I alluded to before I died again on the discussion of Nicolas Cage once again.
Also, take notes, Michael, so that next time when you have to host the show, you have a better idea of what to actually do.
Yeah, we'll be canceled before that happens, I think.
I'm like, are you talking to yourself like in third person? Or are you talking to me? Because I don't know if I need to be taking notes.
Don't start doing De Niro on me here.
Oh, no.
You talking to me? I'm the only other Michael here, so you must be talking to me.
So, that was a lot worse of a transition that I could have. Anyway, we got 7 lies. Just jumping right in here.
Yeah, Russian transitions. We're really great at those these days.
I'm good as a transition as a Russian roulette.
If only.
Here's hoping. So, in the last episode that I presented about Alexander II, we learned about Tsar Alexander II of Russia, a pretty chill dude who wanted to improve the lives of his subjects by freeing them from serfdom.
Thank you for the Bill and Ted breakdown there.
I would say, as far as czars go,
Alexander II was a pretty chill dude.
He was, compared to all of his predecessors, his successors, pretty chill.
Indeed. Well, tell me about Socrates.
So Socrates wanted to improve the lives of his subjects by freeing them from serfdom, reforming a lot of parts of the government, like the penal system and the military, and helped spur on railroad development across the country.
You can't say penal without trying to make me do a spit take here, friend.
I tried. I just didn't time it right. However, like most of those in charge, they don't really know how to implement these radical, air quotes, radical reforms, like freeing the serfs so they can actually, do things with their lives. But they would rather make them pay for the land that they've worked for generations with the money they didn't have because, they were serfs.
Mm-hmm. And also, the state owned it first.
Yeah, exactly. You were just renting the land. You never owned land in particular. So don't forget, like those usually in charge, they like to do things their own way. And since Alexander's predecessors were autocrats, he figured he'd be an autocrat too. Which means to say, if a whole group of people, like, I don't know, the Polish, decided they'd rather be off running their own country, Alexander decided that's not really in his vibe. That's not his vibe. So he would rather crack down on them brutally and, exile some 70,000 people from their own country. Send them to...
Goodness, Russia has moved on past that sort of behavior, and we are living in much more peaceful times.
I know. So modern. I don't think Russia has done anything at all problematic in the last year or so. I haven't read the news, so I wouldn't know, but... other
than, riding a horse bareback, and by that I mean not wearing a shirt. Yeah, they comport themselves brilliantly.
Yeah. You can.
Holy fuck. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interject here, but I have literally got like a 1970s, like, film soundtrack happening outside. A train just went past me, an ice cream truck just rolled by, and now someone is like bumping music as they're rolling down. It's like, what the fuck is happening here? Next, I'm gonna have like Goofy falling down. Oh!
Yeah.
So
I'm just kind of happy to learn that you live in an area where ice cream trucks go by. And why are you still on the podcast and not chasing after it?
Well, I have my own supply. I'm a fat man. I don't want to run for anything. So that's answer one. But the one that we have in our neighborhood is super sketchy because it's one where they've actually ripped the door off of the van and then installed this little plexiglass liner and then taped pictures of the ice cream delicacies that you can procure from them. But the window is still large enough to pull a fully, decent-sized child through.
Have you checked the missing children's ads or postings of your neighborhood?
I'm happy to see them go, to be completely candid.
It's less that I have to worry about. There's a lot
it's not
less people
quiet
in the neighborhood.
Between the train, the planes, trains, and automobiles that are floating by this fucking house, it is ridiculous what's happening. Like bad sound effects aplomb. So I'm sorry for your editing in the future, but you can't make this stuff up.
You can't.
Anyway, continue. The Great Tsar.
So we're talking about the Alexander and cracking down on the Polish
sausage.
Yes. Well, in a way, in a cultural sense, by
Alexander, he loves to ride those poles.
Ride those poles all the way out to Siberia in the I can't say the gulags because that's a good like 80 years too early, but in a way, when Polish people decide that they want their own country and Alexander decided no, he exiled a bunch of them and killed quite a few more.
Unfortunately, now I'm just rocking a bad song in my head, like whoa, whoa, whoa. Ride my Polish.
See, I was thinking it shouldn't be set to music like that. It should be more like a 60s surf song. That way we can get the surfs going in there too,
Mm-hmm. Yes. This is where Courtney would say Kokomo and we would just move on. I got my Woody waxed up and I'm ready to roll. It's going to be a grand time.
Can just have some chill surfer dudes and cowabunga.
Little surfer girl has an entirely different connotation to me now.
So after all this fun stuff with the Polish, it comes as no surprise that a lot of people wanted Alexander II dead. And a lot of people tried, as we learned in the last, their part one. While the earlier attempts had people just try shooting him point blank, he just kept dodging bullets somehow. Whether from a hat maker,
from the Matrix,
exactly. Whether from a hat maker smacking the assassin's hand right when the gun went off.
I swear to God, I thought you were going to say smacking his ass. I went like
that.
When you were like whether or not from better. A hat maker smacking his, and I was like, "Whoa, hello." What was Alexander
his ass? He's like, "Woo!" Leans back. The bullet whizzes right past his forehead, like. The best way to avoid an assassination.
Ride my Polish.
To the gun exploding upon shooting, to Alexander ducking and weaving, he was somehow impervious to bullets.
Didn't you say he wasn't ducking and weaving?
No, he was ducking and weaving. I said he was...
He didn't have self-defense courses. Gotcha.
Yes.
He did still do serpentine, though.
Yes, he's still duck and wove. Wove? I'm not an English person, so
yeah,
I don't know.
You also said hung like 18 times over the course of that show, and I was screaming at you from afar.
Hanged? Is that real?
Yes, it is hanged.
Can you tell me why?
I can, because the rule says so. This is the English
and
language.
They don't use.
Line. Yeah, thank you. They don't use any rationale, Michael. It's not going to make sense.
As long as you are admitting that, I feel better.
Okay, well, if you can admit that there is some grand music of the spheres happening up in the cosmos somewhere that was created by anything other than of a divine creator, then yes, we can come to an accord here.
I mean, I don't want to get too far afield.
You and I are
with
both agnostics. I was just trying to get you upset. So
You caught me. So then when all those attempts had failed spectacularly, a group, the Narada Naya Vola...
So would you stop that?
I cut most of that out of this script, this recent one. So
let's not talk about the Nards Naya Vola over here anymore. It's...
Yes. Or People's Freedom, which apparently gets translated erroneously as People's Will. So that is something, a correction that I would like to
Wait,
make.
Is that bullshit?
No, that is true. Apparently they are more referred to as the People's Freedom as opposed to People's Will. It's one of those things where whenever you translate like Russian with the Cyrillic lettering and everything to English with its not Cyrillic lettering, it kind of changes a lot of the letters, and then subsequently the word. So you can either translate it directly as People's Freedom or somewhat erroneously as People's Will.
Well, Doc is presently enjoying a Moscow Mule, so he can translate for us. It's a Russian tongue, I assure you. The
Narada Naya Vola.
Free the nipple.
So,
so the people's freedom is Korsho.
Svetsta? Nah, anyway.
It's Korsho.
I know Kaladilnik is...
I just said it three
something.
times.
Anyway.
Scroll neck.
No, I'm not. Scroll neck.
Berserker.
I will scroll the neck. Anyway, I feel like I've been problematic
fucking this
enough.
Dog for long enough.
Yes. So, the People's Freedom decided that something with a little bit of a bigger boom would suffice. Like a literal bomb. They tried blowing up Alexander II's train and then his winter palace. And he dodged those too. Well,
they did make a fine pie with the original train, though.
Yes, they did. They mashed all the fruit in the train to a nice pulp because they blew up the fruit storage train as opposed to his actual train.
Do strudels, please.
Exactly. He didn't really dodge those. He always just ended up late to the explosion or party.
Haven't we all been there?
Mm-hmm. This is where I also must offer a secondary correction. In my research for part 2, I found that I missed the extent of the explosion in the Winter Palace. One source that I used for part 2 mentions the death toll for the Winter Palace at 67 people instead of 11 guards. So I do want to admit, I was wrong.
Okay, so they noticed.
Yes. No one noticed, but I did. So that's saying something.
I swear to God, Michael, this better be genuine. And so help me God, if any of those 7 lies are number lies on my one episode of this podcast.
None of them are. I'm not pulling a John.
No one else is either, but...
Also, now there are 8 lies, but... But no, none of this in the recap is a lie. Yes.
Or a number lie.
Or a number lie. Yeah. Since that wasn't the last we would see of the People's Freedom, I feel like it's time we learn a little bit more about that group who, spoiler alert, actually does assassinate Alexander II.
Well, so now I don't even have to read the book.
Well, I mean, that's essentially what I'm doing. I'm summarizing like this whole political intrigue that occurs. So, let's just say if you like Ocean's 11.
Oh, here we go with the heavy water sabotage again.
I was getting a lot of repressed memories of that.
Oh, good.
I tried my best. That's all I'll say.
People's Freedom is not the Kardashians-led Free the Nipple movement, though. You're definitively stating that for me right now.
Yes, they actually did something instead of... No, I was thinking of a Jenner that stood in front of like a line during like the police riots for a Pepsi commercial and walked up to the police and grabbed a Pepsi, and that just made everything better.
Okay.
Right. I was thinking it was the people that are trying to keep Kanye West down.
We don't say those two words together.
That's the Illuminati. We can't talk about those. As card-carrying members, as is canon, we can't talk about Kanye
were
West.
actually, yeah, we were invited to the Illuminati.
It is canon.
Still my favorite email.
All right. Take it easy.
Canon is also one of Kanye's children, by the way.
Oh, no. So, as I mentioned before, the emancipation of the serfs in 1861 did not suddenly end the state of extreme poverty that occurs in Russia overnight, and instead made it worse. These farmers who had worked the same fields for generations found themselves without the land to work. The state owned it. Granted, the state was open to selling the newly liberated serfs that land, but who could afford it? It'd be like if your landlord said one day, hey, we're canceling that rental contract you signed, so you aren't forced to live here against your will. Congratulations. Oh, by the way, you can still live here, but you just have to buy your residence from us if you want to stay. If you can't, you gotta go. The landlord, or in our case, the state, still held dominion over the property and thus had control over the nation's economy. That, like most things in power, didn't sit well with those who had no power, like the serfs, or the intelligentsia, which I will talk about in a moment.
There's no intelligence in Russia.
I can't offer a rebuttal to that. Yeah. Anyway, back in the 1800s,
KGB will be coming to see me soon, I'm sure. I look forward to the discussion.
So let's say we're not talking about modern Russia, but talking about like Russian Empire, where you could be smart, in there.
Yeah, if you're Rasputin.
A little too early.
Still, he was smart.
Well, he'd have been alive at that point, though. By the 1860s, he was around, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was making a pilgrimage. He wasn't washing. He was strolling through bogs.
I think he already had about a beard the length of Shane's by that point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Just 2 feet short of being a man at that point.
Just like Michael.
He's not wrong. Anyway.
Did love a horse.
Bareback.
What a beautiful horse.
Callback.
By the 1870s, dissent regarding the established order, i.e. the state, had started to take form amongst the intelligentsia, or the university-educated people, whether academics, writers, scientists, etc. Those more enlightened folks sought a more modern and democratic society in Russia, since that was pretty much happening all over the world anyways. This is where I'd make a joke about Russia being backwards, but I'm probably already on a hit list for the last episode that I did, so I'm not going to go that far.
Oh, you were on a hit list for an entirely different reason other than insulting academics in Russia.
You're fair. That's a fair point.
And also, just to be transparent here, academics ruin everything. There are 3 of us on this call, so I'm sure we can attest to that.
I can't disagree with that statement.
I'm offended, but also can't disagree.
Yeah.
I've never been offended by something I 100% agree with. This dissent manifested as a set of populist values, or values directed for the common man, which spread throughout intellectuals. This populist ideals. These smarty pantses, because I wanted to dumb myself down, believe the people should control their own destiny, and the function of the state should be based on assisting those within the state to achieve their goals.
No one can control a destiny. We have verbal proof of this.
Yep. My wife refuses to be contained. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
This ideal wasn't just specific to the state on a national level, but also on the local level, in the social interactions between people and communities. Surprisingly, this strain of socialist thought was already reinforced in Russian culture. Sorry, this is for all the people that apparently are still conservative in a sense, that are still listening to this, that haven't gotten the hint. So I wanted to just mention socialism and then...
Wait, I'm sorry. Are you saying that this is some sort of socialist podcast?
Listen, I'm on the record. We love our conservative brethren and sistern, and
they love each other as well. The brothers and sisters of that group.
Yeah, no question. I mean,
Roll
there's
Tide.
no other authorized way. It's not sex if it's a family member. It's experimentation.
Oh. The Russian peasantry and not ones in Appalachia historically governed their small villages as a type of commune where farmland wasn't owned by individuals but instead worked on and owned by everyone. Knowing how Russian villages operated, it wasn't that surprising that these highfalutin intellectuals thought that the state would be transformed for the betterment of all within it through the peasantry rising in mass revolt. Wherein, two entirely different words, wherein Russia would be catapulted from a backwards relic of the Middle Ages to a socialist society at the forefront of technology.
So, I mean, dramatic redistribution of wealth never quite works out the way that we intellectualize it, unfortunately. Trickle-down economics, while they were somewhat effective from a certain perspective, didn't exactly work out as planned.
I mean, you aren't wrong. From a particular perspective, trickle-down economics worked fantastically so.
Yes, yes. For those who were doing the trickling,
yes.
It worked brilliantly.
Those giving the golden showers, not
I was going to
receiving
say, and a couple people that
showers.
I think got trickled on, our former president.
Oh, well, ex-president, baby hands, God emperor.
The fans of trickle-down economics can, attribute the old saying of, like, the best part of you ran down the inside of your mother's thighs. It's, same is true of that system, but what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm. But while all that, stuff is well and good, how the fuck do you start that kind of movement, right? It's one thing to be like, it'd be great if the peasantry just kind of revolted and overthrew their shackles and made some, utopian society or whatever, but how do you do that?
Kill Mike Pence.
Put him on a scaffold.
I think we all three just got put on some sort of list somewhere.
Oh,
I've been on it for a while.
If we're not on a list now, I would be surprised. So
Actually,
I apologize for you being on a list now.
I just got a jolt from that little implant that I have in my lower calf. So I got the sting again.
I think capitalism is a great idea, and we should totally just reinstate Reaganomics. Oh, sorry, something came over me.
Reaganomics.
So you watched The Exorcist recently. Captain Howdy's going to run the government. Yes.
Where'd you learn about Reaganomics? Was that on Joe Regan?
How'd you know I was a Joe Regan fan?
We don't talk about my best gorilla-necked friend on this show. It's not acceptable.
So how would you start this, fantastical society?
I already answered you.
Well, to the people of the 1800s, they didn't really have this, they didn't have Joe Regan or Reaganomics or any of those other, fancy highfalutin ideals. So brainstorming ideas seemed to be a good way to begin. And socialist study circles sprang up in the 1870s during Alexander II's decade off of assassination attempts. He had some PTO. He decided he was, I don't want to be assassinated for this.
Is that bullshit that nobody tried to kill him in the 70s?
No, that is true. He
was on sabbatical from being, any animus.
The last assassination attempt was, I think, 1968, if I recall correctly.
1968.
1868. 1866. Sorry, I am checking my notes.
Get in the chopper.
Sorry.
Get your ass to Mars.
1867, and then we don't see anything until 1879. So technically you are right.
Technically that's a lie, sir. That's what I thought. I was like, I'm pretty sure towards the end of the 70s.
Sorry, let me rephrase. Most of the 70s. Because you're right, that wasn't a lie. I just can't enunciate my, thoughts, as it is known.
But so what you're saying is during that time frame, Alexander was able to keep on trucking.
Yes, he was undisturbed in terms of assassination attempts for about 12 years.
Keep rolling.
Like a train before it explodes.
Like a chocolate-covered starfish.
Like a fruit-filled Pop-Tart.
Ooh. Let's see. So made up of idealistic students from big Russian cities like St. Petersburg, Moscow, Kiev, and Berlin.
What the
Wait,
fuck?
Berlin, really?
Yeah. There were a couple of easy lies.
It's one of my favorite bands, so I'll go with it. But
Berlin. Yeah, it's the capital of Germany. I should have done something at least like in the Prussian area, like I don't know, Danzig or something like that, because then you could say, well, it's technically Kaliningrad, man. But
I mean, you could have thrown like Georgia out or something as well, just to see if we were really paying attention. But Berlin,
or like
that would have been
Warsaw, and going into Poland, tie that.
Oh yeah, that's a good point because Warsaw wasn't owned by Russia. Yeah, well, yeah, that's a good point. Granted, I did write that when I had a different audience, so
essentially anything but Berlin. I mean, come on, that was like the lowest hanging fruit.
So he's insulting his wife again. Yes.
Coming from someone that like tried to say that Athens and what was it? What was the other one? Istanbul were small Italian towns.
Well, I think Istanbul is, but Constantinople isn't. Or is it Istanbul's not Constantinople?
Well, I mean, it is Istanbul, not Constantinople. They changed the name.
Istanbul.
Let's call the whole thing off.
You know what? I like to be old school. It's Byzantium. We'll just call it that.
You say tomato, I say Constantinople. It's all just, it comes out in the wash.
Can I have a slice of Byzantium on my...
Wait, it comes out in the wash? What's your secret, Shane? Because every time I have tomatoes, they always stain.
Hooker spit. Get rust off a car bumper with that. I guarantee it. So why your mother always spit on your face to get stains off? It's just you learn.
It's analgesic like CLR, properties, but cheaper.
CLR, CCR,
CCR.
Rolling.
I ain't no fortunate son.
Well,
born on the bayou.
These groups, which were not in Berlin, but St. Petersburg, Moscow, and Kiev, were loosely organized, only including those who were familiar with each other. This decentralized nature was important as the Popo, as I wrote, were always on the lookout for agitators to arrest and exile to Siberia.
Popo's has marvelous Mexican food here in Phoenix. I just want to say that.
Absolutely fantastic. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
You haven't even had it, don't lie.
No, I haven't.
You're the backyard taco man over here.
Hey, don't talk shit about backyard taco. They have great tacos.
Yes, they have great chipped beef.
However, as the socialist circles were still located in those urban centers, people started to think it might be easier to get the revolution started out in the boonies, where one would assume the secret police would not be found. This sparked a movement in the spring of 1874 called Power to the Players, a reference to the players of national sports teams, of which sports like soccer or football.
Is that a lie?
Can you tell me why it's a lie?
Power to the players is a bit too... I mean, like, organized sports in the 1800s is a little far afield of reality in most instances.
They were starting about this time.
But they were called
said in the
Power to
boonies.
the Players. And, come on.
That's fair. Power to the Players is actually a GameStop motto.
Yeah, as soon as that came out, I was like, there is zero chance that was a legitimate name back then.
Yeah.
Don't hate the players, hate the czar.
Exactly. The real movement was called Going to the People, not Power to the People, or Power to the Players, which sounds
Going to the People, the little-known sequel to Tell All the People by Jim Morrison of The Doors.
Exactly. People don't really, and it sounds like a kind of a boring name for a political movement. So I wanted to do Power to the Players.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna have to go and dovetail off of this though because
go for it.
Interesting anecdotes always pop up. So I was ripping the remainder of my CDs. so that I can sell them to aid in my moving across. You can see there are boxes just littered around my office already. I discovered an import CD I got from Tower Records back when I was working there, which was a collection of Jimi Hendrix's greatest live performances on 2 CDs.
Ooh.
And on the cover, it indicates featuring Jim Morrison. So I bought it on principle because it's like those two individuals on stage together I had never even heard of, let alone like get to hear it. And on the first disc, there is a song called Morrison's Lament. And I played this for Melissa, and she was so mortified that I thought she might just, leave me on principle. It is Jim Morrison, obviously stoned out of his absolute gourd, screaming "fucker in the ass" for about 3 minutes. Or I think he then varies up into "slam her tight little pussy." So this is something that was released in the 70s. And they had to actually, and this is how fucked up Hendrix was. Hendrix actually directed, was like, no. Say it in the recording mic. So he's technically like off mic in the live house mic initially, and then moves over into the recording mic, and then just bleats this out for about 3.5 minutes over the most bizarre like guitar noodling that I've ever heard. It is repellent and yet absolutely disgustingly righteous all at the same time.
Also has to be just captivating. There's zero, there's no way I wouldn't listen to every second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I will be sharing that with you all, and if I can find it online, I will put it in the show notes so you can go sample.
Yes.
But yeah, it is staggering.
Yeah, and then didn't Morrison once get on stage and then yell at everybody, "You're all serfs! You're all serfs!"
Right before he took his penis out in Florida and got incarcerated, yes.
So this has a lot more connection to my topic than I realized.
Uh-huh.
So everything's connected.
Brilliant.
Ka is a circle. So we got
Did you just say that?
Yes.
It's a wheel, you silly shit.
You know the
Time is a flat circle, Ka is a wheel. Now a wheel is a circle, I'll give you.
The circle in the sky keeps on turning.
If you're going to misattribute a King quote on this show, it's grounds for me to actually like treat you like Mussolini.
Oh, gee. Well, I guess let me stretch out my toes and everything so you can string me by them.
I'd like to moose your leanie.
Ooh. I can't even find my leanie, so if you tell me where it is, I'll be delighted. But yes, Michael, get ready for an Alexander-level assassination attempt next week. I'll just be standing out in front of your house with a pop gun.
Oh, I thought you were going to do the good assassination attempts with all the bombs, not the just randomly shooting in a direction. So
I mean, I bomb well enough on my own, but that's my own musical career, so it's fine.
That's just me in general. So yes, power to the going to the people.
Power
is
to
the
the
political
players.
movement.
Yes.
Power to
Power
the
to the
players.
players.
TM. Yes. So the going to the people movement sprang about in the 1874. Some 2,000 to 4,000 students either dropped out of university, hint, hint, or symbolically destroyed their certificates and moved out into the countryside to spread the good word of socialism.
Just wandering through the hills.
Hey, you want to hear about my diploma? By fall, as you'd expect something like this would turn out, by fall, most were arrested and jailed because they did not practice the same level of secrecy that was done in the big cities. And so the movement fell about as flat as a tire that ran over a whole crate of broken glass and nails. It just catastrophically just blew up, imploded, if you will.
It's an exquisitely vivid metaphor there, friend. But, simile, I'm sorry.
Reading about how badly they failed, I think it said like 80 to 90% of all the students that ventured out into the countryside to spread the good word were all arrested and jailed. So it was a spectacular fail.
Was the 2 to 4,000 number the number lie?
I
Did
said,
you actually
no,
pull
he said
this?
there
there
was
were
no number lies.
But
lies.
Michael's been known to lie regardless of whether he's tried to put some things over on me in the past.
that might be that.
Lucky
That is
bastard.
a younger, dumber Michael.
Now we're confusing even further. Michael the younger, Michael the plainer.
Michael the lesser. Michael the lesser.
Michael
will
the
not
Cleaner,
do that.
Michael the Sander.
I'm convinced. I agree.
Michael the carpenter.
That's right.
If I was a carpenter.
Following this failure, a new, more centralized organization emerged. One that I had mentioned briefly, the Zemla e Vola, or Land and Liberty. For those who can't handle my atrocious Russian. Atrocious.
The old Zephyr Volva, yes. We're very familiar with them.
The Zephyr E Volva.
That's my new band name. We've done it. We've nailed it.
Zephyr E Volva. If you cannot recall, because it has been a while,
It has.
Alexander Soloviev, who was part of this group, failed his assassination attempt because Alexander II knew how to duck and weave. Which, yes, I did mention very briefly that he was part of a kind of secret group.
Yes.
And this is the group. After that failure, cells or independently operating groups operating in the Ukraine were virtually wiped out. Those
Ukraine.
Exactly. It all comes back to Ukraine. Those who weren't
Does
arrested.
it, though?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, you're too topical. Get out of here.
I tried. I mean, it does.
It was Moldova.
It was actually Transnistria, just to be really, really like deep in the roots.
I too support trans rights.
Yeah, hit me right in the Belarus on that one. Thank you.
Whew. Let's not even talk about Circassia. That is
Listen.
probably not how you pronounce that culture group.
I'm a sweet transvestite from transsexual
Transylvania.
Transylvania. See, we got to sing along now, Michael. Get ready.
I wouldn't mind doing the time warp again.
That's right. Just quiver with Antissa. Patient.
La 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 love me. Wait for my meatloaf.
Oh. Good night,
Oh, I think I just got rocky hard.
Oh.
It is also a horror, no question.
I lost all my train of thought here.
Your trains of thought?
My train has derailed completely. Okay.
Well,
so,
someone blew it up.
Those who weren't arrested because of the failure of Alexander Soloviev were terrified, and some thought that maybe terrorism isn't the way to go.
Lies.
So we had this whole group. After this terrible attempt at an assassination, people were like, maybe we shouldn't be assassinating leaders. Maybe we should be doing something else. And so...
Reasoned discourse. It will rule the day.
Exactly. It caused a massive division within the Land and Liberty movement or group, with those favoring less violent methods gaining control over the official newspaper.
And this is in 1874?
It was in, yes. No. This was 1879.
Okay, so
this is actually really...
Around what time you think, like, when they all got together to discuss this, it was what, September 11th, 1879? They all decided from now on, no more terrorism ever. As of September 11th, 1879, no more terrorism ever.
I'll put a flag in it.
That's why we all remember 9/11.
There isn't an explicit time, but you know what? I'm okay with that. That is now my headcanon. They gathered together on September 11th. They're like, you know what? Maybe terrorism isn't that. That's right. Isn't that great? So
remember that thing we remember.
Exactly. So, well, those who favored less, terroristic methods, like blowing shit up or trying to assassinate people, they controlled the official newspaper, and those favoring blowing shit up controlled a majority of their executive community. I'm getting too excited. I'm getting into the part where we're starting to talk about like terrorism.
Of course,
don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on that.
I'm ready to start hearing the oral arguments for terrorism again. Please present your notions. Thrall me with your acumen.
That comes later. So those favoring blowing shit up controlled a majority of the executive committee of the, Land and Liberty group.
And they were chaired by Bruce Willis.
Yeah, exactly. It was Christmas. It was Christmas Eve. He just wants to hang out with his wife. Fuck this Hans Gruber kind of guy. I mean, he's a German guy. Like, why deal with him? Just
Yells
blow
out the window of the winter home. Welcome to the party, comrade.
Exactly. So while there was an attempt at reconciliation, the decision was eventually made to split the group up in 1879. Pretty much, I guess now, headcanon, September 11th, 1879.
The day terrorism died.
Exactly.
I haven't heard that Don McLean classic. Bye, blowing shit up in the sky. No.
Those who preferred not blowing shit up formed a group called the
Pussies.
Chernorai. I think this translates from Russian, but the Chernorai Paradel.
I don't think that's a translation.
Well, that's what it is in Russian, but it doesn't translate to pussy. It translates to Chekhov's gun, a Russian idiom which is similar to the Russian idiom.
Shut the fuck up.
Come on.
Okay. Yeah. Again, different audience I was catering to when I wrote this part.
So Destiny's big on Star Trek?
No.
Are you big on Star Trek? Okay.
I thought I could at least get past the nuclear vessels,
guys,
and all that.
So just so we're clear, I don't know if you can see the video, but like, my shorts and whatnot have like Star Trek logos.
He's got the logo.
Yep. Okay.
So
he's got the transponder. Is that what it's called? I'm trying to remember the exact terms.
Well, it's just the comm badges and stuff that they have. But
okay.
Essentially,
I thought that was the communicator that they can talk through and everything.
Yeah. So if we're talking Star Trek, we're talking my love language, is what I'm saying.
Oh, I see. Well, you did say that you had boldly gone where no man had gone before with my mother earlier, so I suppose that stands to reason.
No man. I don't know what your mother's told you, but there was a line of us around the block.
No, she was big into lesbians earlier in her career. So, yeah.
Now I'm liking the story even more. Now you're speaking my love language all around.
Running the train on mom. Throw mama in the train. Throw train into mom. I'm not familiar with Billy Crystal's oeuvre as much as I should be, but I'm sorry.
Lay that railroad pipe like we're expanding Russian
industrialism.
This is the Trans-Siberian Railroad. We're going all the way to Vladivostok.
Come on, ride the train. It's a choo-choo train.
Indeed. And Layla, you've got me on my knees.
And how? So it wasn't Chekhov's gun. Literary principle states everything mentioned in this story is for a reason.
It's actually Sulu's bazooka, I think is what they called it. But
I think that is more specific to Star Trek.
Well,
I think Chekhov's gun is more of a general literary device.
I see. But anyone who has seen Sulu's bazooka says, "Oh my,
oh my." So yeah, they were actually called the Black Repartition. So
the Black Repartition.
Repartition, yes,
indeed.
Why I decided Chekhov's gun was a little bit better for a group.
Oh, well, apparently you weren't a big fan of 70s soul singers. Just unfortunate, but
I can't even lie and say that I was.
I have at least 2 albums by the Black Repartition. It was they're bangers. A little swanky.
Is this actually bullshit? Because I can't tell.
You have never listened to the Black Repartition?
No.
They had that beautiful soul song, Do What Your Mama Told You. Michael knows. He's listened to it.
Mm-hmm.
Doc's heard it before. It's a thing.
Oh, shit. Well, you know what? I completely surprised. You win.
They're a kissing cousin to the Phoenix Faithful, for those that were familiar with Black Carl previously. It's great music. Yeah. Well, you're not from Phoenix, so I mean, I wouldn't expect that you would have known it.
Well, not from Eugene, but I know the Cherry Poppin' Daddies.
Well, I'm not from Canada, but I know the Crash Test Dummies, so...
But do you know the Tragically Hip?
I do. I was in that band for about 5 minutes.
Meanwhile, I've never heard of the Tragically Hip.
Oh, you have homework to do, sir. Especially Road Apples. In all honesty, I think it's the 1994 album, Road Apples. All listeners, go give it a listen. Great Canadian band. Hashtag
Yes.
Oh Canada.
They are. I'm gonna say this though. They are no rainbow butt monkeys, sir.
Hashtag Oh Canada. Got me.
Oh, the humanity.
Oh, the Canada.
Canada don't, sir.
Those who favored blowing shit up, so not speaking of Canada,
Obviously Canadian.
reestablished themselves under a new name, one that I have tried pronouncing many a time. The Narada Vola, or People's Freedom, or People's Will, depending on how the phrase is
Or
translated.
Power Players
English.
or whatever it was.
Power to the players, and the People's Freedom. Invest in GameStop. So, this new organization did not waste time. After all, there were Russian nobility to assassinate. So, in the spirit of a new organization, they sought out new members in the form of worker study circles, just like the previous organization. The People's Freedom founded or co-opted these study groups in the major cities just as before, but also expanded into more Ukrainian cities like Kherson and Odessa. In addition, the group established cells within the military, since it's always better with the military on your side. Their most important military cells were several you might recognize if you know a little bit about Russian history. The army garrison at St. Petersburg and the Kronstadt is my approximation of pronouncing it, naval base, which had a very important role in the Russian Civil War, which birthed the USSR. It was one of the first major mutinies that occurred. It was a naval base off of St. Petersburg where all of the sailors just decided, fuck it, we're not doing this. And I think like appropriated several boats and everything and helped. They did a lot of stuff. They helped spur on the beginning of the Russian Civil War. Kronstadt.
They were navel gazing, in fact.
Exactly. So while establishing all these cells, the People's Freedom did what any secret organization did around this time. They established a party press, since they lost their last one with the other group, the Chekhov's gun, if you will. They established a party press and started 2 illegal newspapers, the eponymous Narada Volia, and another newspaper specifically targeted.
Targeted.
The
Targeted.
The Tarded. That's what the Doctor rides around on, isn't it?
Well, kind of. Depending
Yeah.
upon which companion we're referring to, some of them are. But,
Oh. Oh, Jesus.
Can we flash to, is like, you've made me think of like, as they're running, you're talking about running a printing press, but I'm thinking of like high school kids handing out leaflets at a kegger, just like slipping stuff under people's windshields. So in terms of feeging, they're just walking up to people's carriages and just sliding stuff under the tail.
That's I don't know the specifics, but that doesn't sound too far afield from what a lot of secret organizations or secret newspapers would kind of spread their stuff. It's not like they could just stand on a street corner and just say, you know, hear all about it.
Oh, they could.
This secret organization wants to overthrow the Russian Tsar and kill him and establish a socialist, you know, country.
Okay, so you're more thinking like Rick Moranis in the original Ghostbusters walking up to a horse on the street and saying like, the revolution is nigh, our day of reckoning is about to come, and then running away.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So let's see. For being a secret organization, they were pretty open about their objectives. They considered the establishment of political freedom as their prime objective and called for, quote, complete freedom of conscience. You're free to be conscious.
Thank you.
I mean, considering that is Russia, I feel like that also is pretty applicable.
They are not free to decide, though.
You're free to be awake, and that's all you're allowed. The complete freedom of conscience, speech, press, assembly, association, and electoral agitation. So the group, who I hesitate to call a party, as it was known within the organization that the organization itself had no dreams of forming a actual political party. They had every intention on laying down their arms once political concessions were made, and hoped that the self-governing common in Russian villages would be the new normal for governance across Russia. So they weren't trying to start, they weren't like the Bolsheviks trying to start their own political party. They were like, we want to get the ball rolling, but hopefully once things start rolling, we don't have to be at the forefront.
So
we don't want leadership.
Like all great Marxists, they say, I don't want to be a part of any group that would have me as a member.
Essentially, yes. They're like,
oh, wait, no, that was the Marx Brothers. I'm sorry, I misspoke.
I mean, but they were like, boy, howdy, it would be great if, people just did their own thing and we don't have to help them. It would, like, we'll start the ball rolling, sure, yes, but once the ball is rolling, we're backing the fuck out.
And they're going to kill Alexander with an exploding cigar.
That comes later. No, I wish I could say that comes later. No, they never were subtle about their explosives, as we will find out later.
They did plan to kill Castro that way, though. So
yes, it bullshit that they didn't want power, though? Because he did make reforms. So if they were just okay with stopping once, like, they got the reforms, why would they continue to move forward with the assassination after he granted, a bunch of different reforms?
That is actually a good question, because I was very interested in that myself, because a lot of groups or organizations in this time were like, yeah, it'd be great if the ruling party were thrown out and we took control. No, they actually did not want to take any sort of power for themselves. They were honestly they had like they had their convictions about just overthrowing the current running political order.
Well,
they had no aspirations beyond that.
So then, because earlier you said if they got the reforms that they wanted, then they would like lay down their arms and move forward. But now you're saying that they would, stop once they overthrew the government, right? Those are two different things. Because stopping and laying down their arms once they got the reforms they wanted. Okay, well, he was granting reforms, so there would be no need to overthrow. But then if we'll be okay once we overthrow them.
The reforms they were receiving, though, were not exactly what they were sold initially, because, essentially it's like, oh, yes, we'll free you, but you're going to be destitute regardless. So maybe it is not being satisfied with the sort of arrangement
but he was
that
continuing
they had.
Right up, and if I'm remembering correctly, he was continuing to make reforms literally right up until the day that he died.
Oh.
Did he not?
Oh, yes.
I think I know I'm kind of jumping the gun there, but if memory serves
you're
correct.
fine.
Pun intended.
Yeah, he always, like, granted, after his first couple of assassination attempts, he got a little bit more reactionary in terms of his politics, and kind of catered more to the autocratic side of the Tsardom. But yes, as far as I was aware, he did try and, he genuinely cared about improving the life of his people, but he never went about it in the correct way. And that's why I made that point, that he had every good intention of doing reforming everything. And a couple other sources that I read more in detail for part 2 as opposed to part 1 were really specific on he completely revitalized the like I said, the penal code, but he also reinvigorated other types of politics within Russia. He also helped start off the kind of industrial revolution, in a sense, in Russia by having a lot of foreign investors jump into Russia to help kickstart factories and stuff like that.
Well, they kind of had to after they got their ass handed to them, in the Crimean War and whatnot. So
exactly,
that all makes a lot of sense. So I'm on board there, and I don't know if I'd give him a lot of credit for the penal code reforms because you basically had to if you were
Yeah.
ending serfdom. The two were so tied together. To do one, you had to do the other. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
so I wouldn't give him like a twofer there, but I'd say okay, the serfs, that makes sense. But also, I also don't know if I'd go as far to say that he genuinely wanted to help people. I think he probably didn't want to just get marched down to a basement and shot, like his grandkid did, right? Right. So
well, that's a fair point, and I do kind of get a little bit into that for his successors based off of what occurs with his assassination. I guess I was more being very reductive in terms of like him wanting to genuinely help people because it's right.
You're just such a sweet soul, Michael. You're just such a sweet, innocent soul.
Yeah. Trying to see the positivity in people.
Is this why you voted for Trump?
There's many reasons. No,
Shots fired.
Fuck.
I just wanted to see the good in him.
Oh, his baby hands and the fact that he loves McDonald's, like I can get behind that, and he has a toupee and like my hair is out of control most of the time. So like I just vibed with him on a very fundamental level.
Let's just admit there's good people on both sides. Okay.
Yeah, I think Stormy Daniels will also agree she kind of vibed with him, but
for the right price.
I think she was just high on mushrooms, or at least the mushroom tip.
Can't get high on that one, I'm afraid.
No amount of work.
It is psychedelic. It's like licking a frog's back, warts and all. But I think to the doctor's point here, it's easy to be disenchanted when you see the sort of folly of the number of things that had been put in motion, and then just continue to believe like, yeah, he's claiming that we want to change things and make it different, but I don't really trust that's going to be the case. And when you're already oppressed and beaten down and continuing to see your quality of life diminish, I don't think you're going to lobby to get back on. It's like, yeah, let's keep supporting this guy that's going to run us into the ground. So it's not shocking that they're interested in still attempting to whack the man.
Oh, no, not at all. I was just surprised to hear that they weren't interested in power themselves.
Right. I think it's just more like, let's get rid of this. I don't care what happens in the aftermath. Let whomever wants to, squabble to try to get power.
Until
let's just get
Alexander
this
the
out.
Third came in, and then suddenly they cared quite a bit who came into power.
Yes, exactly. And that's, I think, might justify the violence of the uprising at that point as well. Because you watch this, like, they're tamping down the aggressions, and then you have these bursts. And then they tamp it again. And it's just something that kind of continues on in Russian history, even to contemporary climate. Is you just keep, to steal from The Shining, you keep, dumping over on the boiler there and running off some steam, but it's going to blow eventually.
That's right. You eventually got to deal with the problem. You can't just keep Putin on the Ritz.
You've won the pun game this evening. I will be sending the hat your way.
Okay. That was a long aside, but it was a fantastic aside.
Also a cheesy joke, by the way. Just going to mention that.
Well, Ritz and cheese, it all goes together. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, Lunchables taught me that.
So I mentioned, like a good while ago, political concessions. But from the promises I mentioned above, the only political goals that involved our friend Alexander II, with those at the top of the people's freedom. Essentially, so like, yes, they didn't want like power for themselves. They just wanted change, which like I can understand on a fundamental level. Just like they don't want to do everything themselves. They just want to start it, and then whatever happens, happens, and then you roll with the punches based off.
They just wanted a little RESPECT.
Exactly. No, honestly, exactly.
And then they were rolling on the river. So, it's also like every good anarchist, right? Like, I don't care what happens in the aftermath. I just want to knock this thing off the pedestal.
Exactly. Like, I don't know who would be better, but it'd be
shit on the speaker's desk.
Exactly. I don't know who'd be better, but it's whoever it is would be better than this guy. So they had issued a proclamation calling for the execution of the Tsar for his crimes against the Russian people.
Ooh, subtle.
Yes,
Very
exactly.
secret society-ish. We issue a proclamation on behalf of our secret society.
We
Yeah.
spray painted on wall. Kill fuckers.
Kill all those.
In fact.
They spray painted a cab, just because they could. They believe that offing Alexander would, quote, break the government itself, unquote, and end all vestiges of the Tsarist regime in Russia. The government was seen as weak and on the edge of collapse, they reasoned, and the chance of a revolutionary overthrow looked quite promising to them at the time. Those in charge, the executive committee, with all their saber rattling about assassination, I am saying these very, very odd.
That's like, how drunk
here.
are you?
Fuck. I'm very thrown off. I'm not used to conversation.
Well,
about
thank you.
Honestly, like I'm used to Shane being like, "Yes, this is interesting. Please continue," and everyone else being like, "What?" So apologies to Courtney because she might actually listen to this as opposed to John. So there you go.
I still don't know how offended you expect me to be by that statement.
You're listening to it now, and you'll listen to it later, so you can be doubly offended.
No, I was referring to you're not used to good conversation. So
I don't know. I was okay with the statement for some reason, Shane. I was fine with it.
yeah, I'm not.
You didn't
shocked.
want them to fall asleep. You were more like, all right, we got to keep the kiddies entertained. You know, let's keep it moving. That was way. Anyway, I'm getting too.
Do you have?
I'm not in my element.
Donnie, you're out of
hand
your
signs.
elephant. Your elephant? Yes, you're out of your elephant. Pull your trunk out of your ass.
Hello, everyone. Future Michael the Lesser here. This episode actually ran for over 2 hours, in part because of just great conversation between everyone involved. So the editor, myself, decided that it was a good idea to just end it here at this little part where I try and get my act together to finish out the rest of the episode. So we have socials. As Shane always says, you won't listen to them, you won't look at them. There will be a link tree in the show notes for those brave individuals who are actually interested in that. I do shorts for YouTube where I just take little clips of the episodes and just put them as shorts on YouTube. So dive into those if you've got time or the inclination to do so. Tune in next week for part 3 of this fantastic assassination. And hear more from me, Dr. Mike, or Doc, and Shane. And until then, which is next week, until next time, I'm Michael, and zippity zoop, I'm out of here.